Welcome back to Speducation. I am your host, Brandon Reed, and as always, if this is your first time to the channel, a special welcome to you. Well, it's a new week, and last week we talked about a special case. Two special ed students in Laguna Beach High School were denied entry because of issues related to their service plan. And fortunately, it ended peacefully, and the school relented and allowed the students to attend. However, this wasn't an isolated case. There are cases like this all over the country, and you're probably wondering, well, if this happens to me, what can I do? What are my rights? Well, that's actually a great question, and that's what our lesson is about today. Today's lesson, parent rights. So at the beginning of every case conference committee meeting or annual case conference, revision conference, initial case conference, manifest determination hearing, it doesn't matter. If you are having a case conference with a special needs parent, then you have to provide them the procedural safeguards. And you're probably wondering, what are procedural safeguards? Well, every state has a list of procedural safeguards. These are the parent's bill of rights in regards to special education, and each state has their own kind. So, for example, California has theirs, Nebraska has theirs, New York has theirs, Florida, Texas, even Indiana. In Indiana's procedural safeguards are very similar to other states, but with slight variations here and there. However, all procedural safeguards, regardless of the state, adhere to the federal law known as IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Now, the procedural safeguards from each state, like I said, are slightly different, but they are long. And the one for Indiana is no exception. It's around 28 pages long, and it's extensive. So to go through every single little piece of information in the procedural safeguards would take days. And I know you like shorter videos, so I'm going to keep it short. Today, we're just going to focus on what do you do, or what are your rights if you disagree with the case conference committee decision on the proposed action or IEP. So the section that we're going to be looking at is if you ever disagree with a proposed action that the school is taking in regards to your child's IEP. So what happens if I disagree with the action the school is proposing or refusing in a subsequent IEP? Well, when the school proposes or refuses an action concerning your child's special education and related services, it must provide written notice to the parent at the conclusion of the case conference committee meeting, or mail the notice to the parent after the case conference committee meeting. If mailed, the written notice must be received by the parent no later than 10 business days after the date of the case conference committee meeting. And if you disagree with the proposed action described in the written notice, you may request and participate in a meeting with a school official who has the authority to resolve the disagreement. This may be a school principal, it may be the special ed coordinator, or even the special ed director. You could also initiate mediation, which would most likely require somebody maybe outside of the school to come in and listen to both parties. And then if that doesn't work, then you could request a due process hearing where the school hires a lawyer, you hire a lawyer, and you take your case before a judge. Now, as I said, if you disagree with the proposed actions, you can take one of these three steps. And typically, you always want to start with requesting a meeting with a school official before you enter mediation. And due process is probably the last resort. And typically, schools don't like due process hearings, so these steps don't really get past mediation, but sometimes they do. If you take any of these actions within 10 school days after receiving the written notice, the school cannot take the proposed action and must continue implementing the student's current IEP. That means that if you disagree with the way the IEP is written or any kind of services that are being provided, the school cannot start giving those services or implement the IEP until you give your written consent. If you challenge the implementation of the IEP by requesting a meeting or a mediation, and that method does not resolve the issue to your satisfaction, the school may implement the IEP on the 11th instructional day after the meeting or mediation, unless you request a due process hearing. So that means that after you have had the meeting and you have said, I don't agree with it, and you've done the initial meeting and then you've done the mediation and you're still not in agreement, you can request a due process hearing. If you don't request one, then on the 11th day, they will take the proposed action, which means that they will implement the IEP as it is written or implement whatever services or decisions they've made as a case conference committee. But you have the right to a due process hearing, which would prevent that. If you fail to take any of those actions within 10 school days after receiving the written notice, the school may implement or take the proposed action. You may take any of these actions after the 10 school days of the date you receive the written notice, but the school will implement the proposed action. So that basically means that you have 10 days to reject or counter whatever decisions the case conference committee has decided. But after 10 school days, the school will implement whatever action. They will implement the proposed IEP, the services, or whatever action they choose. And you still have the right to ask for one of those 3 meetings, but the school has a right as well to implement the proposed action. So it's all about timelines. You have to make sure that you express your concerns before those 10 school days are up. Now, if you want to learn more about your rights in regards to being a parent of a child with a learning disability, you can check out the procedural safeguards for yourself by following the link in the description to this video. This is where you'd find it. And if you liked what you saw, you learned something new, or you're new to the channel, please click the like button. And if you want updates on future videos, feel free to click the subscribe button and ring the bell for updates on future videos. And as always, if you have questions or concerns, or there's some topic that you would like me to cover, please drop a line in the comments section and I'd be happy to get to it. And until next time, class dismissed.